Paul of Tarsus is widely remembered as the architect of a new Hellenistic religion, but this overlooks the actual mechanics of his profession. Paul was trained in Jerusalem under Gamaliel, a leading member of the Sanhedrin. He was a Pharisee, a specialist in the Torah as operative constitutional law. Academic tradition often assumes Paul imported Greek philosophical concepts, such as Platonism or mystery cults, to create a new religious framework. In Second Temple Judaism, the distinction between the religious and the legal did not exist. Torah was the civil, criminal, and covenant code of the nation. Approaching Paul's epistles as rigorous legal filings provides the necessary framework to understand his most radical claims. The Torah operates as a closed constitutional system, built on evidentiary standards, property rights, and treaty structures. This system is mathematically precise and explicitly declares its own structural limits. While the Levitical system covers inadvertent sin, Numbers 15 identifies a strict boundary. It provides no mechanism to atone for Bayad Rama, willful, premeditated defiance. Because the Genesis 3 violation was a deliberate act, the Levitical sealing leaves the Adamic verdict, the oldest liability in the text, legally open and unresolved. Paul's letters function as a cumulative legal brief, arguing that these open cases have been executed according to the system's own strict requirements. He cites the existing structural demands of the Jewish constitution to prove the system has reached its designed conclusion. Paul's argument for Gentile inclusion is often categorized as a break from the Torah. Legally, it is an argument about instrument priority. The Torah contains two distinct documents, the universal Abrahamic title deed and the later national Sinai administrative overlay. There is a 430-year gap between these two ratifications. In Galatians 3, Paul applies a foundational principle of ancient contract law. A later administrative overlay cannot legally annul or void a prior ratified title deed. The original contract remains the governing instrument. Gentile inclusion restores the universal scope specified in that original Abrahamic instrument. This forces a technical question. How can Israel legally exit the binding terms of the Sinai covenant? The prophets Hosea and Ezekiel frame the Sinai covenant as a binding marriage contract. In this legal frame, Israel's idolatry is classified as adultery against the husband, Yahweh. This triggers a specific impasse. Deuteronomy 24 bars a defiled divorced wife from returning to her first husband. The law blocks the relationship's restoration. Romans 7 identifies the only exit provided by that law. The literal death of the husband dissolves the marriage bond entirely. This is a self-maledictory dissolution of the Sinai obligations. This dissolution allows for a new marriage to the resurrected representative, leaving the unilateral Abrahamic covenant untouched. Paul resolves the Jeremiah 3 impasse by executing the Torah's own dissolution mechanics. Finally, we must address the claim that Christ absorbed the curse of the law. Deuteronomy 24:16 serves as a constitutional constraint, forbidding the punishment of an innocent third party for the crimes of another. While this law governs human courts, Paul traces the resolution to the constitutional ground of the covenant itself in Genesis 15. To ratify the founding promise, Yahweh utilized an ancient Near Eastern suzerainty treaty form, with Abraham unconscious during the ceremony. Yahweh alone passes between the pieces, binding himself in a unilateral agreement. This is a self-maledictory oath. The legal meaning is, if this covenant fails, may what happened to these animals happen to me. This provides the legal basis for Galatians 3:13. The curse absorption Paul describes is not a random transfer of guilt to a bystander. The cross represents the oath-swearing party executing the self-maledictory clause of his own voluntary commitment. This mechanism satisfies both requirements of the system. The penalty is paid to honor justice, and the original oath is fulfilled. Paul's entire corpus operates as a 24-movement architecture designed to resolve the rib, the formal prophetic covenant lawsuit. Centuries of violations had generated an operative, self-incriminating liability instrument against the people. In ancient jurisprudence, this is known as a kiragraphon, a handwritten debt instrument with binding legal force. Colossians 2 describes the physical and public cancellation of this document. It was nailed to the cross. This cancellation has an immediate legal consequence. The cosmic enforcement authorities lose their standing to prosecute the debtors. With the claim basis extinguished, the rib lawsuit is formally closed. Paul identifies the specific executors, a Melchizedek priest, a last Adam, a kinsman redeemer, who satisfy the system's exact legal specifications. By citing the existing record, Paul officially closes the Torah's oldest open cases. The binding covenant contract is finally executed. The ancient debt is permanently discharged. The universal jurisdiction is fully reclaimed. Paul is the ultimate executor of the Torah's constitutional law.